Hello, everyone. My name is Kamran Naim. I'm the head of open science at the European Organization for Nuclear Research. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak to the research community in Australia about how we view open science policy and practice, and to share some of the lessons that we've learned. A little bit about CERN. The organization was founded in 1954. It's truly an international collaboration. We currently have 23 member states, 11 associate member states, and 3 observers. Every day we host about 13,000 researchers. We have about 2,500 staff. We are the world's largest scientific home of the world's largest scientific instrument, the Large Hadron Collider, which, when it is in run period, as it is right now, generates over 1 petabyte of data per second. The LHC, our flagship instrument, is 27 kilometers in circumference, buried about 100 meters underground between the borders of France and Switzerland. It currently is the coldest place in the known universe at about 3 Kelvin, and the particle collisions take place at temperatures that are about 10,000 times hotter than the surface of the sun. We use the instruments at CERN really to explore our scientific mission, which is to understand fundamental questions about the universe. And one piece that I wanted to pull specifically out of the mission is that CERN really aims to unite people from all over the world through its collaborative ethos to benefit all. And this specific ethos, which we use as our kind of driving force behind open science, was actually enshrined in CERN's founding convention, where in 1953, when it was originally written, the authors said that the results of the experimental and theoretical work should be published or otherwise made generally available. So the CERN community in its history has really used this as a mandate to perform open science. We did this with initial work going back to really the birth of the web, invented by Tim Berners-Lee here at CERN, that was ultimately then released into the public domain. And since then, a number of activities, a few of which I'm going to highlight today. So we were one of the first pioneers of open access, and as many of you may know, the movement for open access really began in the early 2000s. The Budapest Declaration for Open Access begins with some beautiful language around how an old tradition and a new technology have merged to provide an unprecedented opportunity to turn research into a public good. I think what we have witnessed in the last 20 years or so is that those declarations have really failed to deliver on their promise, and much of scientific research remains commodified. So publishers continue to sell their journals and also continue to charge article processing charges, essentially turning open access into a commodity as well. Now, CERN initiated its open access strategy not only looking at research output from the organization itself, but we decided that there was an opportunity early on to try and shape open access for the entire discipline on a global level. And so before there were any transformative agreements, such as those that have been introduced by initially commercial publishers and now increasing numbers of society publishers, we arranged a global collaboration that was built on the model of the research collaborations here at CERN. And this year, we're celebrating 10 years of the Sponsoring Consortium for Open Access Publishing in Particle Physics, or Scope 3, which has essentially enabled the entire transition of the discipline to full open access and has delivered the research as a public good. We have converted the journals, 11 of the leading journals in the discipline, to full open access through this ethos of partnership, where we have contributions from libraries all around the world, now from 47 countries, pardon the outdated number on the slide, that all contribute financially to a central fund where we negotiate and pay publishers directly for open access publishing services. By doing that, we eliminate any barriers for authors anywhere around the world to read the content, and of course to publish their work, and of course the content is free to read globally. Scope. We've also been able to do this at an investment which is far less than many of the article processing charges that comparable journals charge, or even some journals that currently are in Scope 3. So, for example, our average investment in Scope 3 per article is about 1,250 euros. Physical review letters, which is one of the Scope 3 journals, we only pay for the high energy physics portion of that. Physical review letters now charges more than 3 times as much for articles in other domains of high energy physics. So I think what this slide really demonstrates to you is how, through collaboration and collective action, we can really achieve much more effective goals for the community that are not only equitable but also are financially beneficial. If we look at the total value for money and stability that an initiative like Scope 3 has been able to deliver over the last decade, we have only increased our budget by 7%. Now, if you compare this to, let's say, an average annual price increase, which many librarians are accustomed to, for publishers of 3%, which I think is, on the average or maybe somewhat low side, that would, over the course of a decade, come to about a 38% increase in price or in total budget spend. So we've been able to do this again through concerted collective action. My plea to the research community in Australia is to not make the same mistakes that many of us in Europe have made, and others around the world, of entering into agreements with publishers where they get to set the terms of how much things should cost, and particularly commercial entities that end up with financial arrangements that end up not really benefiting the community, as we're seeing hyperinflation in transformative agreements and also with APC charges. One piece about collective action is that it only really works if those who are benefiting from the resources contribute financially. We have had a number of institutions in Australia participate in Scope 3. We would love to invite other institutions that are using the journals and are publishing and benefiting from Scope 3 to help contribute towards the fund and help ensure our sustainability. So next, I wanted to talk to you about open data in particular. So along with the publications, we have a partnership with Durham University called HEP Data. And in our discipline, what we try and do is to make sure that publications that have data sets related to them are made fully and publicly available through HEP Data and licensed with a CC0 license. We also have the CERN Open Data Portal, which has over 2 petabytes of data from all of the different collaborations. But this portal not only provides access to data, we also provide open source software. We also provide the workflows, all of the contextual information that someone might need, either to reproduce or reuse a data set and extract additional scientific value out of it. We also go beyond the discipline of high energy physics, and because we have an interest in advancing open science on a global scale, many of you may have heard of Zenodo, which is the world's largest multidisciplinary open research repository. It hosts about 80% of the world's software DOIs, but also hosts data and papers across all disciplines. And Zenodo is also offered and supported by CERN, built on Invenio RDM, which is an open source technology also built at CERN. So this is just to mention that, at CERN, we've had a number of different initiatives. So whether it was the web, contributing towards the development of Archive, open hardware licensing that began in 2011, the development of Zenodo, Scope 3, all of whom are now celebrating more than their 10th anniversary, that we've really started to pull together policies, first for open access that was first written in 2014, an open data policy that was released in 2020, into a more comprehensive open science policy. And what this policy does is it captures current practice, but also states a progressive vision across multiple open science domains. And what we do here, of course, has been informed by the UNESCO recommendation. We have a very close working relationship with UNESCO, and was developed in consultation with the community. But here we go beyond just the outputs. So it isn't only a policy that relates to the articles or to the data. We look more holistically at practice of open science. And so to us, this means, looking at software that can enable practice, software that can be an output. We look at hardware as an output, but then we also look at issues like reuse, reproducibility, education and outreach, and very importantly, on research assessment. We understand research assessment to be a fundamental systemic issue, which which has actually hindered the advance of open science globally. There are multiple global efforts now. Obviously, DORA, which has been around for a while. COARA is now a European effort, which is trying to gain alignment on a vision for research assessment that moves beyond simple journal level metrics. We really are trying to help be part of a global cultural change that can help to advance open science practice. We also have now formalized what used to be smaller ad hoc initiatives across the organization into a more formal organizational structure. We have an open science steering board that ensures that our open science activities are aligned with the scientific mission of the organization. And we have a practitioners forum that consists of a number of different practitioner efforts or working groups, and can also include obviously new emerging groups on areas such as AI and machine learning or quantum computing. And the idea is really to have an engagement of the entire community to try and get them to understand the value of open science, to contribute towards the organizational mission, and the steering board to help make sure that it aligns with the organization's overall goals. So before I conclude, I just want to say that we also work extensively with international partners. Obviously, we have a close working relationship with UNESCO, which was one of the founding organizations of CERN. We have a close partnership with NASA. We organized an Open Science Summit last year at CERN and brought policymakers from all around the world. Unfortunately, no representatives from Australia were able to attend, but to really share our experiences on open science policy development and practice. Are moving forward. We are really looking at community-oriented solutions. So when it comes to open access, we have a real interest in diamond models. We're interested in strengthening the role of repositories in the research ecosystem, particularly addressing rights retention. I've already talked about our very strong interest in evolving research assessment. And I think our advice to the Australian research community is really to encourage collective action at the national level while engaging with international actors to ensure global alignment. At CERN, for better or worse, we're recognized as global leaders in open science, and we're here and available to share any of our insights. Obviously, a number of softwares are available, technologies, expertise. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Use the QR codes to have a look at our website, which details some of our open science activities. And please don't hesitate to contact me directly if you have any questions. I'd be happy to help. Thank you for your time and attention, and best of luck.